The day for Islam Makhachev to defend his UFC lightweight title looms closer, and everyone seems to have an opinion about what's about to go down. Alexander Volkanovski is no joke, true, but Makhachev has been doubted repeatedly in the past and still has managed to claim the title for himself. Today, we're going to look into the latest on the fight for the #1 pound-for-pound spot. First up, Charles Oliveira shares his thoughts on Makhachev versus Volkanovski. The former lightweight champion has predicted the impending title fight. Oliveira himself lost the belt to Makhachev at UFC 280 back in October, but before that, he was stripped of the title ahead of his clash with Justin Gaethje at UFC 274. The Brazilian went on to win the fight and reclaim the title by defeating Gaethje via first-round submission. If Oliveira managed to defeat Islam at UFC 280, he would have been the one to face Volkanovski. Now instead, the Russian will mount his first title defense in one of the most highly anticipated super fights in recent history. This is a match that has all eyes on it because it's about more than just a title. This has Khabib's legacy on the line as well. Oliveira had 2 showdowns with Alexander as part of the pre-UFC 280 plans. He even hinted at a move down to the featherweight division to challenge Volkanovski for the 145-pound title. He also wanted to face Volkanovski at the 155 pounds for the dual championship. Alexander Volkanovski is a fighter who is respected by everyone in the UFC, no matter the weight class, and Oliveira is no different. The Brazilian thinks the great has amazing skills and resilience and is deservedly the #1 in pound-for-pound rankings. But in the upcoming title fight in the Australian's backyard, Oliveira is leaning towards Makhachev on retaining his lightweight belt at UFC 284. Next, Oliveira analyzes the much-awaited title bout. The Brazilian fighter, after losing his title to the Dagestani machine, decided to take some time off and collect himself before he could step into the octagon again. However, during a recent interview with the Brazilian podcast Super Lutas, Oliveira made his predictions on how the fight could play out. The BJJ maestro thinks that if Islam can somehow close the distance and take Volkanovski down, there isn't much the great can do. But Alex himself isn't a slouch either. He has demonstrated in the past that he has an amazing takedown defense and strong hands. He showed the world that he could work his way out of submission attempts in his fight against Brian Ortega at UFC 266. Oliveira thinks that if Volkanovski can move well and control the distance, he could take Islam by surprise. According to him, it'll come down to whoever has a better game plan and how well they can execute it. Volkanovski probably will have a huge speed advantage against the much bigger Makhachev. But then again, it may not even matter if the Russian can take the fight to the ground using his takedowns. Much like the rest of the MMA world, Oliveira will keep a very close eye on his lightweight title bout between the two fighters. He's working towards his UFC return, and if he gets another title shot, he may have to fight the winner of this battle for it. Now let's take a look at Islam's victory against Oliveira. It was Team Eagle's plan from the beginning that Makhachev would pick up where Khabib's left. When the Eagle retired a couple of years ago as the undisputed and undefeated UFC lightweight champion, he started backing his protege in Islam for the title, a plan that was set in motion by the late Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, who wanted Islam to become champion when Khabib's retired. And boy, did they make it happen. In October 2022, Islam faced his toughest adversary yet, Charles Oliveira. This was a shot at the title of UFC's lightweight division, and Makhachev couldn't wait to get his hands on it. Like before, people called him an underdog in the fight and thought of Oliveira as the better striker and grappler. Islam proved them all wrong once again, as he went on to dictate the first round, landing significant strikes and successful takedowns. In the second round, Islam's right hand sent Oliveira to the ground, and he quickly followed up on it. Makhachev transitioned to an arm triangle and made his opponent tap. None of Oliveira's previous opponents dared to follow him to the ground because of his endless bag of submissions. However, Makhachev is just built differently, because not only did he manage to dominate UFC's all-time leader in submissions, but he also was able to finish him off on the ground. This was a statement win for Makhachev and his team as he secured the title as Khabib's left behind. Islam dedicated this victory and his championship belt to coach Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov in a heartfelt interview after the match. What's more, Makhachev challenged Volkanovski right after winning the title. Islam and Khabib wasted no time after they secured the lightweight weight. Right after the fight ended, they challenged Alexander Volkanovski and invited him inside the octagon. Volkanovski obliged and accepted the challenge, with the two fighters shaking on it. The great has dominated the featherweight division for years now, going unbeaten throughout his entire professional MMA career. He was also recently made the #1 pound-for-pound UFC fighter, and so he was looking to move up a division into a lightweight. Volkanovski was said to take the fight against Islam before Oliveira stepped in. In his first ever title defense, Islam looks to go head-to-head against UFC's featherweight champion and their #1 pound-for-pound fighter. Moreover, the bout will take place in February 2023 in the Australian's backyard in Perth, Australia. If Islam manages to win, he'll take over as the #1 in pound-for-pound rankings. However, it won't be as easy. Khabib himself had admitted that Volkanovski is a tougher opponent than Oliveira, and rightly so. The guy had dominated the featherweight division for years now and had smashed every single one of his opponents. After Volkanovski, Islam will probably take a fighter from the lightweight division. Facing Dustin Poirier may be inevitable, and with his victory over Michael Chandler recently in UFC 281, he may be the next contender for Islam. There's also a possibility of a rematch between Islam and Charles Oliveira. Reports suggested that UFC wanted to book an immediate rematch, but the Brazilian turned it down as he needed a mental break, so Oliveira may be on the cards again soon for Islam. Moving on, Volkanovski promises a career-defining 2023. The great has already put on some weight for his lightweight title fight, as he will have to move up a weight class to challenge Islam Makhachev. The bout will be featured as the main event of UFC 284 on February 11th at the RAC Arena in Perth, Australia. In his early days as a fighter, Volkanovski packed on some serious weight as he competed at 170 pounds. But the former rugby player found most of his success in mixed martial arts at featherweight. However, now he's bulking up once again to deal with Makhachev's lethal grappling power. Talking on his YouTube channel, the featherweight champ said that Islam may be strong and he will be ready for the fight, but Volkanovski himself will be more than eager. He added that he's going to be stronger than ever and that he's also packing more muscle mass than he did before. Volkanovski had an eventful 2022 as well. He managed to stop Chan Sung Jung at UFC 273, and he was also able to completely shut out Max Holloway at UFC 276, leaving no doubt in their trilogy. In 2023, Volkanovski is chasing a second title in the lightweight division, and beating the likes of Makhachev will only help in building his legacy. According to the Australian, 2023 will be the biggest year of his career. He said that taking out Islam will only be the beginning of the year, and it'll open doors for him to not only be great, but to be one of the greatest. Next up, Rafael dos Anjos dropped some advice for Volkanovski. The Brazilian has performed successfully in 2 UFC weight divisions during his time. RDA reigned as the lightweight champion in 2015. A few years later, he moved up the welterweight class and even went on to challenge for the interim UFC welterweight championship, where he lost by a decision to Colby Covington. RDA imparted some words of wisdom for Volkanovski to prepare for his fight against Islam Makhachev. He explained with an example of his own situation as he was preparing to face Brian Barberena in the welterweight division. He commented on how much stronger the guys in the 170 weight class are and how important it is to be prepared for it. The fight between Dos Anjos and Barberena took place in December last year, in which RDA was able to submit his opponent using a neck crank. Sharing his experience in an interview, he told the Australian to train with bigger, taller, and stronger guys than him to adjust better to the bigger weight division, so he can avoid getting surprised inside the cage. Finally, let's look at Khabib's plan for Islam. The Eagle wants his cousin and protege to follow in his footsteps and retire at the top of his game. Khabib decided to hang up the gloves at the peak of his abilities after he defeated Justin Gaethje at UFC 254. He left the sport with an undefeated and unmatched record of 29-0, winning the hearts of a lot of people over the years. Since then, Khabib has been a force behind Islam Makhachev, and his ultimate claim claim over the UFC title. Recently, Nurmagomedov revealed his 3-year plan for Islam and his future in the octagon. Khabib said that Islam needs at least 5 to 6 title defenses. 6 fights in 3 years would be ideal, according to him. He then went on to say that after that, Islam could maybe leave the sport for good, as no one can stay on top forever. Khabib knows what it's like to retire undefeated and undisputed, and that's probably what he wants for Islam as well. As much as people love controversy, there's none to be had here. These guys are like brothers, and we know how loyal they are to each other. Khabib genuinely wants what's best for Islam, and that's why he wants him to retire at the top of his game as well. Well, that brings us to the end of our video today. What are your thoughts on Makhachev versus Volkanovski? Will Islam be able to prove his doubters wrong again? Let us know in the comments section below. Also, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more such news.